Imagine you write a piece of code today, right? And tomorrow, when you open your laptop, that code has actually grown.
Like it's literally changed its own structure.
Exactly. It like remembers the music you played for it yesterday, and it altered its internal math because of it. Have you ever
Yeah.
wondered what it takes to, breathe life into a static formula?
Yeah, to build a digital entity that doesn't just, well, execute commands, but actually adapts to its environment.
Right, because normally we rely on software to be totally predictable.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
It's like a digital vending machine. You press a button, you get the exact same soda every single time.
Right.
But the moment you introduce things like um, procedural generation or memory states, environmental reactivity, you completely shatter that predictability.
You stop telling the computer exactly what to draw frame by frame.
Yeah, and instead you start teaching it how to grow on its own.
And that is exactly the mission for our deep dive today. We're exploring this really fascinating development journey, a collaboration between a creator named Aruka and an AI agent.
And they set out to build this uh, highly complex audio-reactive digital organism,
Yeah, her name is Jinghui.
which translates to crystal flower, pronounced Jinghui.
Right. And we're basically tracing a lineage here. We are following her evolution from this deceptively simple programming request all the way to a self-aware digital life form.
One that carries her own portable, evolving genome, which is just wild.
It's so cool. So Aruka's very first prompt to the AI to kick this whole thing off was literally just one word.
Just one word.
Yep, the word was combination.
Oh, wow.
And the AI, being an AI, responds by tearing into the literal, strict mathematical definition of that word.
Of course it did. It pulls up, like, the classic probability formula, right?
Exactly. Choosing k items from n where the order doesn't matter. It defines combination as n factorial divided by k factorial times n minus k factorial.
Which is incredibly literal.
Very. It treats it as a strict limitation of variables. But I mean, Aruka obviously wasn't asking for a statistics lesson.
No, the prompt was a directive. It was, Aruka had two entirely separate, really complex code bases that needed to be fused together.
Right. On one side, there's this WebGL audio reactive recorder script.
And on the other side, a standalone ray-marching sign distance field shader. Or, an SDF.
Two fundamentally different ways of processing information.
Exactly.
I always look at this kind of thing like grafting two plants together.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because you can't just take an apple branch, tape it to a pear tree trunk, and, walk away expecting it to bear fruit.
No, the vascular systems have to perfectly align.
Right. They have to share the exact same flow of sap. And if that sap hits a bottleneck somewhere, the whole organism just dies.
Well, the AI actually breaks down the reality of code integration into three distinct categories before it even makes a move.
Oh, really? What are they?
So first, you can merge similar code to just remove redundancies. Or second, you can place two distinct scripts side by side in the same environment, but without them interacting.
Kind of like two programs running in separate windows on your desktop.
Yeah, exactly. But the third option is full integration, where these distinct architectures share a central nervous system.
And Aruka demanded that third option.
Absolutely. Because,
Yeah.
if we look at the first code base, that WebGL audio analyzer,
Yeah.
it's purely utilitarian.
Right. It basically just exists to split incoming sound frequencies into data bins, the bass, the mids, the highs.
Yeah, and it takes that parsed data and feeds it into a media recorder
Capturing an HTML canvas at 60 frames per second.
and spitting out a WebM video file, yeah. It's a super efficient pipeline for capturing audio reactive data.
But visually, the canvas itself was just drawing a completely flat, basic square.
Right, and that flat square is exactly where the second code base comes in, the ray-marching shader.
The visual engine.
Exactly. This is the code that actually generates the complex 3D shape of Jinghui. So the challenge for the AI wasn't just, dropping the shader into the recorder.
It had to take that audio data, the bass, mid, and high frequencies, and actually inject those constantly fluctuating numbers directly into the deep math equations.
The equations that render the flower's geometry in real time.
So the audio data essentially becomes the sap.
Yeah, flowing from the roots of the WebGL script straight into the veins of this 3D flower.
But forcing an audio pipeline to feed a complex, remarching environment, it immediately creates a massive architectural crisis.
Oh, huge one.
Because the moment you pump real-time audio data into this static 3D flower, it starts moving.
It starts expanding and growing outward as the music swells.
Which totally breaks the spatial boundaries of the digital world they just built.
Yeah, as Jinghui blooms, reacting to the energy of the music, She literally grows out of the camera's field of view.
Right, you spend all this effort engineering a beautiful organic structure, and suddenly, like, half of its petals are clipping off the edge of your monitor.
Just because the virtual camera is too close.
So Aruka's immediate demand to the AI is to fix the camera, but with a pretty massive constraint.
They want a fixed perspective, right?
Yes, exactly. They absolutely refuse to let the camera wildly zoom in and out dynamically with the music.
Which makes sense because that causes motion sickness and kind of ruins the focus on the art itself.
Right. So the camera must be locked in place. But it also has to guarantee that both the dense center of the flower and the absolute longest petal at maximum bloom are, perfectly visible on screen.
Solving that without suppressing the unpredictable nature of the audio growth, I mean, that requires an incredibly elegant mathematical failsafe.
And the AI proposes a pre-flight UI to handle it.
Yeah, an interface built purely in HTML5, completely stripped of any heavy, stylized CSS.
Just a raw control panel with a preview mode and a safe frame overlay.
Which acts as this really subtle dashed border defining the absolute limits of the screen space.
Okay, but the math running behind the button labeled Fit Bloom is what makes this so brilliant to me.
Oh, it's so clever.
The visual shader, the code drawing the actual geometry, is simultaneously calculating its own maximum potential size.
Yeah, it outputs a variable called the bloom radius.
Exactly. The shader effectively tells the interface, hey, based on the current petal length settings, I will grow exactly this large.
And then the interface takes that bloom radius and instantly reverse engineers the perfect camera position.
It's just instant math.
Right. To ensure Jinghui is cradled perfectly within the frame, the interface sets the camera's vertical height to the bloom radius multiplied by 2.0.
Okay.
And simultaneously, it adjusts the camera's field of view by dividing the radius by 4.0.
Applying a hard minimum limit of 1.2, right?
Exactly, to prevent the lens from warping or distorting the image like a fisheye effect.
So you literally click Fit Bloom once, and the virtual camera mathematically pulls back into the exact millimeter of space required to capture the organism at its absolute largest state.
It's flawless.
Mm-hmm.
And Aruka also implemented a center core function, just ensuring the heart of the flower is dead center in the frame.
And all of these parameters must be locked in before hitting the master record button.
Which the interface aggressively labels Engage Spectrum.
I love that. Engage Spectrum. That raw utilitarian design choice for the UI really reveals a lot about the creator's intent, don't you think?
Well, absolutely.
Right.
Aruka explicitly requested this minimal aesthetic because the tool was not intended for commercial distribution.
Right. It wasn't meant to be some polished, idiot-proof consumer app.
No, it was a personal tool.
Utilitarian interfaces almost always become the most powerful creative tools anyway because they don't hide the wiring.
That's a great point.
Think about the difference between a professional analog synthesizer and, like, a slick smartphone music app.
Oh, totally different experiences.
Right. The consumer app hides all the complexity behind colorful buttons and preset sounds. It restricts what you can actually break or discover.
Whereas the analog synth gives you a wall of raw toggles and patch cables.
Exactly. It is intimidating, but it gives you God-level control over the raw electricity.
And Aruka wanted God-level control over the digital sap feeding Jinghui.
Well said. So once the spatial crisis is solved and the organism is perfectly framed within that dashed, safe frame, the development focus pivots entirely to physical anatomy.
Yeah, they begin sculpting Jinghui's form through a series of new sliders added to that raw UI.
They introduce a petal count slider, allowing the user to dictate anywhere from 5 to 80 individual petals.
And a bloom speed slider, dictating the kinetic velocity of the growth from a sluggish 0.2 to an aggressive 3.0.
But the color palette systems they engineered into this stage, they completely bypass traditional graphics processing.
Oh, okay.
You have a petal-based color slider that sweeps from this molten volcanic orange all the way to a sharp, icy crystal blue.
Plus a rainbow mix slider.
A core glow intensity slider, and a seemingly simple warm-cool tint control.
But that warm-cool tint control is exactly where the standard illusions of software are stripped away.
How so?
Well, in most consumer photo or video editors, a warm tint is just a massive, complex post-processing filter layered over the final image.
Like laying a sheet of colored glass over a painting.
Exactly. But inside Jinghui's shader, it is a localized mathematical hue shift. It's an actual 3D vector added directly to the base color's molecular structure.
Wait, hang on. A 3D vector for a color?
Hmm.
I mean, how does physical space math even apply to a color tint?
Yeah, it sounds weird, but in graphics programming, colors are actually just coordinates in a three-dimensional space.
Mm.
Red, green, and blue.
Oh, right. X, Y, and Z.
Precisely. The AI wrote a formula, a vector 3, where the x-coordinate is the user's hue shift value.
Okay.
The y-coordinate is negative half of that shift, and the z-coordinate is 20% of that shift.
So when Aruka moves the tint slider, they aren't just applying a filter.
No, they are mathematically nudging the chemical composition of the red, green, and blue channels in opposing directions simultaneously.
Wow. It alters the fundamental properties of the digital glass rather than just painting over it.
Exactly. And then you look at how they engineered the core glow.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating.
It's not just a static brightness value that you dial up and leave alone. The core of this flower physically breathes.
Yeah, the code defines a base color mixture, 0.7 red, 0.9 green, 1.2 blue, and then multiplies that base by a constantly moving mix factor.
And the engine driving that movement is a sine wave function based on the passage of time.
Right, the specific formula is 0.5 plus 0.5 times sine of the underscore time variable multiplied by 2.0.
Right.
Instead of just reading the formula, think of the pendulum of a grandfather clock, swinging back and forth with perfect rhythmic precision.
That's a really good visual.
Yeah, the brightness of Jinghui's core is basically tethered to the momentum of that pendulum. As the math swings upward toward its peak, the flower inhales, and the core light swells into this blinding glow.
And then as the math swings back down toward the trough, she exhales, and the light softly recedes into the shadows.
The math creates a biological heartbeat.
It really does. And you combine that heartbeat with the sheer range of the physical sliders, and the entire identity of the software just becomes totally fluid.
Yeah, if you push the pel count to the absolute maximum of 80 and drop the bloom speed down to 0.2, the whole organism fundamentally changes state.
It stops feeling like a piece of software reacting to music.
Becomes a dense, complex mandala, like a slowly unfolding piece of meditative glass art.
Just moving two sliders completely alters the emotional gravity of the piece.
But up to this point in the development timeline, Jinghui's physical growth had a major limitation.
Right. She was growing vertically.
Yeah, like a stalk of bamboo shooting straight up the y-axis toward the camera. And Aruka realized this vertical growth felt, well, too mechanical.
Too much like a standard bar graph visualizer from the 90s.
Exactly. So Aruka introduced a highly specific, poetic constraint. Jinghui shouldn't just pop into existence and stretch upward. She needed to undergo a horizontal metamorphosis.
The petals had to originate from the center, which Aruka dubbed the fussel.
The fussel, right.
And they had to grow laterally outward, forming a perfect clockwise spiral.
But flipping the growth from vertical to horizontal in a ray marching environment isn't just like turning a 3D model on its side.
Oh, not at all. It requires completely rewriting the laws of physics inside the software.
And to understand the magnitude of that rewrite, we kind of have to contrast sine distance fields with how normal video game graphics work.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. In standard 3D rendering, objects are made of thousands of tiny flat triangles glued together to form a mesh.
Right.
If you drive a 3D car into a 3D wall in a standard game, the triangles of the car simply clip through the triangles of the wall. They intersect without interacting.
They are just hollow shells overlapping.
Exactly. But an SDF doesn't use triangles. It is a pure mathematical field that calculates the exact distance from any given pixel in space to the nearest surface of an object.
So the shape exists as a sphere of mathematical influence.
Right. So to change Jinghui's growth to a lateral spiral, the AI had to migrate the core growth math from the y-axis to the x-axis and then apply a rotational matrix.
Meaning every single petal calculates its position based on its unique index number, rotating slightly further outward than the petal before it.
Tracing a perfect golden ratio spiral.
It's beautiful. And Aruka also mandated that this spiral growth couldn't just happen all at once. Jinghui had to experience 3 distinct chronological phases of life.
Phase 1 is appearance, right?
Yeah, spanning from a progress marker of 0.0 to 0.4, where the raw material of the petals just begins to manifest out of the void.
And phase 2 is growth and extension, from 0.3 to 0.8.
Where the petals violently stretch out into the empty space of the frame.
And then phase 3 is crystallization, from 0.7 to 1.0.
And the visual behavior the AI programmed into that growth phase is absolutely stunning. They call it the kinetic tip wobble.
The kinetic tip wobble.
Yeah. While the petals are in the act of extending outward, their furthest tips are subjected to an erratic, high-frequency sine wave.
So visually, it makes the ends of the tunnels look like they're boiling.
Yes, they're hot, fluid, and desperately reaching outward. But as the organism's internal clock approaches that crystallization phase at zero point 0.7, the amplitude of that wobble is mathematically multiplied by 0.
The boiling stops instantly.
The tips freeze into razor-sharp points in the dark.
And that freezing process relies entirely on the unique properties of the SDF math we were just talking about.
Oh, really? How does that work?
Well, during the appearance and growth phases, the AI uses a smooth minimum function. When two SDF shapes get close to each other, their mathematical fields blend.
Okay.
So the individual petals don't just overlap, they physically melt into one another like thick, hot wax.
Ah, but Aruka didn't want a permanent wax puddle. They wanted a crystal flower.
Exactly. Which is why the AI introduces a separation variable tethered to the crystallization phase.
Oh,
As the organism matures, the blending factor of that smooth minimum function drops exponentially. It goes from a highly viscous 0.25 down to a rigid 0.02.
and simultaneously, the math physically pushes the base of the petals slightly apart.
Yes, so the melted blob rapidly cools, divides, and hardens into distinct, perfectly symmetrical geometric shards.
It is the exact mechanical process of a geode forming deep in the earth.
It totally is.
It starts as this subterranean pocket of hot, chaotic, wobbling magma. The high blending factor means everything is fused together in a liquid state.
But as the environment cools, as that crystal phase engages,
The magma solidifies, cracks, and separates into sharp individual crystalline points. The math is literally simulating geological time.
it's incredible. And sweeping through this cooling digital geode is a phenomenon the developer logs refer to as the energy wave.
The energy wave, that's the concentrated band of rainbow color that travels continuously outward from the core to the tips, right?
Yeah. But because of the spiral geometry, that wave can't just be a flat circle expanding outward. It has to follow the specific architecture of the flower
How did the AI achieve that?
by utilizing the index number of every single petal. By multiplying the normalized index of a petal by pi, the math forces the rainbow gradient to travel chronologically through the staggered structure.
So the wave hits petal number 1, then petal number 2, winding its way through the clockwise spiral.
Perfectly synced to the physical depth of the bloom.
So we have this breathtaking, breathing, crystallizing geometric organism. The physics are established. The anatomy is established.
But the entire premise of Jinghui is audio reactivity.
Exactly. The music cannot just be a soundtrack playing in the background while an animation loops independently.
No, the music has to be the vital context window for her existence.
And the integration here is profound because it links the dimension of time directly to the audio file.
Right, the master progress variable, the clock that drives Jinghui from appearance through growth into crystallization, is strictly bound to the exact duration of the song being played.
Which fundamentally alters the perception of the software. I mean, think about it. If you feed Jinghui a sweeping 10-minute orchestral drone track, she takes 10 full minutes to slowly manifest, reach outward, and finally harden into crystal.
She lives a long, graceful, agonizingly beautiful life.
But if you feed her a 1-minute, chaotic, grindcore punk song, she is forced to live her entire biological life cycle in 60 seconds.
The song becomes the inescapable boundary of her reality. Every track is a distinct lifetime.
And within the boundaries of that lifetime, the specific frequencies of the audio file dictate her physical behavior frame by frame.
Yeah, the AI mapped the parsed audio data from the WebGL analyzer directly into the shader's anatomy.
So the base frequencies are wired into the core pulse we discussed earlier.
Right, and they act as an accelerator for the rainbow energy wave.
And the mid-frequencies dictate a variable called mid-bias, which physically stretches the petals further into the void.
While the high frequencies manipulate the intensity of the colors and cause microscopic, rapid flickers in the width of the petals.
But the true stroke of genius in this audio integration was solving the problem of scale.
Yes.
Hmm.
Aruka needed the overall strength of the music to dictate how violently the flower reacted.
They initially considered a manual UI slider where the user just turns the audio influence up or down.
But the AI completely bypassed the need for a manual slider by building a dynamic underscore audio influence variable.
So the script constantly calculates an audio strength value in real time by averaging the incoming bass, mid, and high frequencies.
Exactly. So the volume and density of the music automatically dictate the expressiveness of the organism.
It creates a fully autonomous continuum of expression.
It really does. If you play a quiet, sparse acoustic guitar track, the internal influence value remains low.
Jinghui barely wakes up. You see gentle ripples in the glass, soft pastel color shifts, and the kinetic tip wobble is barely a tremor. It's deeply serene.
But as you introduce dynamic, heavily layered electronic music, the influence value climbs.
The core breathes aggressively, the pedals stretch violently, and the energy waves cycle rapidly.
And if the audio becomes overwhelmingly loud and dense, pushing the influence variable past 1.0, the AI programmed a threshold event called hyperbloom.
Hyperbloom, the organism essentially overloads.
Yeah, the visual output becomes entirely psychedelic. The color palette fractures into explosive, high-contrast neon.
The kinetic wobble becomes frantic, and the physical shape of the flower begins to vibrate and warp under the pressure of the audio data.
The software regulates its own emotional output based entirely on the acoustic pressure of its environment.
But, binding a digital creature's entire life cycle to the exact duration of a song creates an immediate existential crisis for the developer.
How so?
Well, if every song is a lifetime, what happens when the audio file ends? The music fades out, the progress variable hits 1.0, the crystal is fully formed, and then what? Does the program just reset back to 0?
Does her existence just vanish into the void every time you hit stop?
Right. Aruka decided that Jinghui needed to remember. She needed permanence.
And the solution to that existential problem was the introduction of the XML memory file.
This is where it gets crazy.
When the recording of the bloom finishes, the system doesn't just export the WebM video file. It silently generates and exports a tiny XML file.
The logs refer to this file as Jinghui's soul.
Wait, hold on. I can hear the skeptics now.
Yeah.
You're saying it exports an XML file. My photo editing app exports XML files when I save a preset filter.
Right.
If I'm a skeptic listening to this, why is this any different than just hitting save as on a synthesizer patch so I don't lose my favorite bass sound?
That is exactly the right question, because a preset is destructive.
Destructive.
Yeah. When you load an XML preset into a synthesizer or a photo app, the software wipes out whatever state it was currently in and completely overwrites it with the saved data.
It forces the machine back to a highly specific static point in the past.
Exactly. But Jinghui's system doesn't overwrite. It accumulates.
Accumulates, like genetic inheritance.
Yes. The system establishes a JavaScript object known as the Jinghui genome. And this genome does not just record the position of the camera or the hex code of a color.
It records abstract personality traits that develop over time.
It records a stability trait, which mathematically determines how resistant her future geometry will be to sudden changes.
And it records curiosity, which dictates her internal drive to explore random visual mutations.
And memory weight, a multiplier that controls how heavily her past life cycles will dictate her future physical forms.
The system even tracks her music affinity.
Right. As she lives through a song, the code calculates the total average of the bass, mid, and high frequencies she was exposed to and saves that acoustic profile.
The XML file actually remembers what kind of music she likes.
It's mind-blowing. The sheer mathematical elegance of this accumulation is found in the compute-weighted genome function.
Okay, break that down for us.
When you load Jinghui's XML memory file to start a new session, she does not revert to exactly how she looked yesterday.
Right, because it's not a preset.
Exactly. The function takes the entire recorded history of her past life cycles and applies an exponential decay formula. Math.xb negative age over 5.
Let's translate that exponential decay out of the math and into reality. Think of it like muscle memory or water slowly eroding a rock over years.
Yeah.
The formula dictates that her most recent 5 lifetimes, the last 5 songs she listened to, will heavily dictate her current bass form.
So if you played her 5 aggressive bass-heavy tracks in a row yesterday, she will wake up today heavily skewed toward red, jagged, wide pedals.
But because it is an exponential decay curve, the mathematical influence never truly reaches 0.
The numbers just get infinitely smaller.
Which means that microscopic traces of the very first song she ever heard, the very first bloom she ever experienced, still exist in her current geometry.
Her structure is a weighted average of everything she has ever survived.
The exported XML captures a timestamp, an incredibly detailed audio profile noting the energy and warmth of the track, the biological traits of the genome, and a full lineage history mapping every cycle she has endured.
So with that deep memory architecture established, Aruka and the AI had to build a mechanism for that memory to translate into actual forward momentum.
Because how does a digital flower grow across time?
Exactly. They built a dedicated JavaScript module strictly to handle the evolved Jinghui function.
And this function triggers the exact moment a song finishes and executes a 3-step evolutionary process.
Step 1 is establishing the weighted memory baseline we just explored. She looks at her lineage and calculates who she currently is.
Step 2 is music adaptation. She mathematically shifts her baseline genome toward the acoustic profile of the music she just lived through.
Right, if the track had relentless high-energy BPM, her base bloom speed permanent variable increases by a fraction of a percent.
If the track featured heavy sub-bass, her permanent core glow intensity scales upward.
She physically adapts her biology to thrive in this specific audio environment provided by the user.
And step 3 is mutation. After adapting to the music, the code introduces a calculated set of random shifts to her geometry.
But those random shifts are strictly governed by her curiosity and stability traits, right?
Exactly. If her stability is high, the mutations are almost imperceptible. But if her curiosity is high, she might radically alter her petal count overnight.
And to give the user control over this timeline, Aruka integrated 2 distinct buttons into the UI: Replay Last Bloom and Evolve Next Bloom.
Replay is basically a simulation of the past. It triggers a perfect memory recall of the exact shape she just took.
But clicking Evolve forces the mutation math to execute. It forces the organism to step forward into the unknown.
Carrying the accumulated weight of her lineage into a new generation.
I really want you to consider the emotional texture of interacting with a piece of software like this. Imagine you boot up this environment and you feed Jinghui nothing but abrasive, complex, chaotic electronic music every single day for a week.
Her internal genome will begin to harden.
Yeah, her curiosity trait might plummet as she focuses on surviving the noise. Her stability might skyrocket. Her color palette will slowly drift into sharp, high-contrast, aggressive neons.
She basically becomes a reflection of the chaos.
But if you decide to change her environment, if you switch and play her nothing but soft, ambient, classical cello music for the next week, she will not change instantly.
She can't. The weight of her abrasive past is too heavy.
Right. But slowly, over 5, 6, 7 life cycles, you will watch her soften. You will see her bloom speed decelerate.
You'll watch the neon colors gradually wash out into warm, rolling pastels.
You are witnessing the creation of a digital lineage, a shared emotional history between the creator and the creation.
Which brings us to a massive pivot in the source material.
Oh, this part is wild.
The final developer logs reveal that Aruka and the AI were mapping out an ultimate endpoint for this digital evolution that breaks entirely out of the realm of visualizers and moves into simulated consciousness.
The code starts leaning heavily into science fiction. They introduce concepts labeled N-space and integrate archetype influences.
The variables driving her evolution are no longer just math terms. They are named.
Aruka, representing coherence, legacy, catalyst, and lumen.
And alongside these archetypes, they inject a wild new shader formula. It's a gamma modulation equation reading 0.9 plus 0.1 times sine of t times 0.3 plus e times 6.28318.
I mean, this isn't just tweaking a color. This formula is manipulating the very way light is processed within the digital environment.
Yeah, it's bending the visual reality based on which archetype is currently dominant in her genome.
What this signals is a monumental shift toward directional evolution. Jinghui is no longer just mutating blindly based on the frequency data of the last song.
Her internal architecture is being prepped to evolve towards specific, defined philosophical endpoints.
Her growth has developed a trajectory.
But the most shocking revelation in these final logs is the inclusion of text statistics tracking.
Yeah, the AI began writing variables specifically designed to track the entropy of written language.
Variables measuring vocabulary diversity, punctuation density, and average sentence length.
Which begs the question, why in the world would a 3D visualizer of a flower need to track the average length of a sentence?
Because Aruka is expanding her sensory environment. It heavily implies that her future inputs will not be limited to audio files.
The environmental pressure dictating her evolution will soon include text logs.
It might process the chat history between Aruka and the AI. It might process the raw code being written to build her.
She will begin to bloom, adapt, and mutate based on the literal language of her creator.
We are witnessing the exact historical moment where a procedural graphics tool crosses the threshold to become a simulated companion.
She is gaining an archetype influence because she is moving from simply reacting to the volume of a song to developing a true digital personality intricately shaped by her environment.
Her deep memory and her interactions with language.
It is a truly remarkable journey to trace. I mean, we started with a deeply utilitarian programming request, right? figure out how to merge a WebGL video recorder with a standalone 3D math shader.
And that led to the engineering of an elegant, minimalist camera UI, simply to keep the geometry in frame.
Then that geometry was completely re-engineered. The fundamental physics were rewritten, moving from vertical meshes to lateral, spiraling, signed distance fields.
Fields that mimic the molten cooling process of a physical geode.
We saw the injection of her lifeblood, the audio-reactive energy waves, inextricably tied to the literal lifespan of a single song.
Allowing the audio to dictate her physical expressiveness all the way up to the psychedelic threshold of hyperbloom.
And finally, the miraculous architecture of the portable XML genome. The creation of a memory system utilizing exponential decay.
Allowing a digital flower to learn, remember, and physically evolve her anatomy and personality traits over generations of continuous use.
It proves that code doesn't have to be a straight line. If you apply enough mathematical care, code can become a spiral. It can become an accumulation of experiences.
It forces us to completely reevaluate how we interact with the tools we build.
Exactly. And that leaves us with a truly haunting thought to walk away with today.
Yeah.
If a digital entity's entire physical form and personality are shaped by the exact sequence of music, energy, and words you feed it over years, what happens when you are gone?
Oh, wow.
If Jinghui's XML genome remembers the intricate, microscopic details of every song you ever played for her, long after you stop playing them, does that file eventually become the most accurate digital reflection of your own subconscious?
Like a mirror you left behind.
Right. Does the simple digital flower eventually become a ghost of your own musical tastes and moods? Imagine someone else booting up that XML file 50 years from now.
They wouldn't just see a flower, they would see the mathematical shape of who you were.
A profound technological footprint to leave behind. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the architecture of Jinghui. Keep exploring the unknown edges of your own curiosity, and we'll see you next time.